Picture this: Olympia, early 6th century BC. A man walks toward a block of red sandstone sitting in the dirt, and the crowd around him goes quiet. He is not a giant. No towering frame, no slabs of bodybuilder muscle. By the standards of any modern gym, he looks almost ordinary. But the stone in front of him? That one weighs 143 kilograms, the same weight as an upright piano, or 2 grown men. And this ordinary-looking man is about to lift it clean over his head with one hand. By everything the fitness industry has ever told you, this should not be possible. Bigger muscles lift heavier weights. Strength follows size. The man who has not spent years eating to grow should lose to the man who has. Except this man's name was Bybon. And we know exactly what he did, because the stone still exists. It sits today in the museum at Olympia, and carved into its surface, in his own words, is a single sentence. Bybon, son of Fola, lifted me over his head with one hand. So how did a body that small move a weight that large? Subscribe and stay to the end. Because the answer rewires everything you think you know about getting strong. Because the Greeks did not get freakishly strong by getting big. They got strong by training something the modern gym has completely forgotten exists. And it was never the muscle. Start with the bodies themselves, because they were real. Walk into almost any museum in Europe and you'll find them. The lean, carved, impossibly proportioned warriors and athletes the Greeks immortalized in marble. We tend to assume those were idealized, even exaggerated, but they mostly weren't. Sculptors modeled them on living competitors, the men who actually won at Olympia. That body was not a fantasy. It was an achievable standard, and thousands of men achieved it. Now, look at what those men could do. They out-threw, out-jumped, and out-wrestled everyone alive, and they did it carrying almost no excess mass at all. To us, that looks backwards. To them, it was the entire point. Size, for the all-around athlete, was dead weight. A runner carrying useless bulk was slower. A soldier hauling it tired faster under his shield. Aristotle himself called the pentathlete's body the most beautiful of all because it was built for both speed and strength at once, and for neither one alone. So, if they weren't chasing size, what were they actually doing in that training ground every single day? That is the real question. And the first answer is the one nobody expects. They threw things, and they jumped. The centerpiece of Greek athletics was the pentathlon, 5 events crammed into a single afternoon, first held at Olympia in 708 BC. The long jump, the javelin, the discus, a sprint, and then wrestling. Look at that list, and notice what is not on it. Nothing slow, nothing grinding, nothing designed to add bulk 1 heavy kilogram at a time. Every event was a violent, explosive expression of force, and each one was prized because it was useful in battle. Take the long jump. They did not do it the way you would picture. They jumped holding halteres, stone or bronze weights between 2 and 9 kilograms, carved to grip. What do you notice about these bronze weights? They were far too light to build any real strength, but they did not use them to build muscle. They swung them. An athlete drove the weights forward at takeoff and whipped them violently backward in mid-air before he landed. The javelin was launched with a leather strap called the ankyle, wound round the shaft to spin it and rip it forward. The discus was the same, wound up and unleashed in one explosive snap. Here is why that matters, and why it cracks the whole mystery open. Raw, slow strength is only half of power. The other half is speed, how fast and how hard the nervous system can fire. And modern science is now blunt about what trains that. A 2016 study in the Journal of Applied Physiology pitted explosive training against slow, grinding training. The explosive group built dramatically more explosive power, the ability to unleash force fast, driven almost entirely by increased neural drive, the nervous system learning to fire harder and faster. And it did it while growing barely 1/3 of the muscle the slow group did. So force, without the size, that is force without bulk, literally measured in a lab. And it is exactly what swinging a halter, hurling a discus, and launching a javelin trains, thousands of reps a year. The Greeks could not have drawn you a diagram of a motor neuron. They had simply found the training that built one. But you cannot throw and jump your way to a complete body. Explosive snap is one ingredient. It does not yet explain a man hoisting a 143-kilogram stone overhead. For that, the Greeks did something far more brutal, and they did it every day. They wrestled, naked, in front of everyone. The center of Greek physical life wasn't a weight room. It was the wrestling ground, inside a building called the gymnasium. And the word itself tells you how seriously they took it. It comes from gymnos, meaning naked. They trained with nothing on. No clothing to hide behind. Nowhere for a soft or unearned body to disappear. Every man's physique was on display to every other man, every single day. And what they did there was savage, wrestling, boxing, pancration, a near rules-free fusion of grappling and striking that was the closest the ancient world came to a fight with no end but submission. Look at what grappling actually demands of a body. You are not isolating a bicep in a mirror. You are bracing your entire frame against a living, resisting opponent who is trying to break your structure while you break his. Every muscle from your grip to your feet firing together, in sequence, under a load that changes every instant. You cannot script it. You can only survive it. That is the deepest kind of strength there is, and it has a modern name: intermuscular coordination. The nervous system learns to drive the whole body as one connected unit instead of a collection of separate parts. It is the single thing you absolutely cannot fake with mass, and the single thing daily wrestling builds better than any machine ever invented. This is why Greek strength looked so deceptive. A pancratiast stripped for a fight didn't loom over his opponent with cartoonish size. He looked controlled, compact, almost calm, right up until the instant he moved, and a body that had seemed ordinary detonated with a force that came out of nowhere. The power was never stored in bulk you could see. It was stored in a nervous system you couldn't. And this is the part most people miss entirely. None of this was random. It was a whole way of living, structured down to the day. And if you want that full system the way they actually built it, training, diet, recovery, and mindset working as one, the art of living like a man lays out all 5 pillars. The link is in the description. Because the structure itself was the next secret. But the Greeks didn't just train hard, they trained in cycles. Their professional trainers, the periodizers, ran a system the writer Philostratus documented centuries later called the tetrad, a rolling 4-day cycle. 1 day to prepare, 1 day of all-out maximum effort, 1 day of recovery, 1 day of moderate work, then repeat. Modern lifters spent the 20th century rediscovering it and gave it a fancy name: periodization. The Greeks were varying intensity and building deliberate recovery into the schedule 2,000 years before sports science caught up. Hard days made you fire harder. Rest days were when the adaptation actually happened. And nowhere in that cycle was there a block of slow, heavy, eat-to-grow bulk work. The structure was engineered to sharpen force and protect against breakdown, to make the body better, not bigger. But that raises the real question, the one we've been circling since the stone. They trained like this for years. So why didn't all that strength turn them into giants? Why did the power keep climbing while the size never came? Because getting strong and getting big are not the same thing. They run on different fuel. Modern science is blunt about what actually builds mass. You need tension held long enough and repeated close to failure, and a body fed a surplus of food to grow on. Building muscle is expensive. The body only spends energy on new tissue when there is plenty to spare. The Greeks broke every part of that. Start with the plate and what was on it. Most of the time, it was figs, fresh cheese, and barley. The food fueled the work, but it was never a surplus laid down to build new flesh. A man training for hours a day, eating just enough to keep moving, has nothing left over to build with. No surplus, no growth. The same iron law that kept the Vikings lean. But the deepest reason is stranger than food. Their training didn't just fail to build size, it actively blocked it. Every sprint, every throw, every explosive hour switches on a cellular energy sensor called AMPK. AMPK does something ruthless. It shuts down mTOR, the precise molecular switch the body flips to build muscle. So the harder a Greek trained for performance, the harder his own body clamped down on growth. He wasn't just failing to send the signal to get big, he was sending the signal to stay lean, thousands of times a day, for years. That is why the strength climbed and the bulk never followed. And if you want the living proof, don't look at a bodybuilder. Look at a gymnast. Brutally strong, visibly lean, because the same forces rule him. Explosive, skill-based training, relentless daily volume, no bulking surplus. And a sport that punishes every extra kilogram because he has to throw his own body through the air. 2,000 years apart, the same equation builds the same physique. And now, every piece clicks into a single answer. The explosive throwing and jumping built the firing speed, force without mass. The daily wrestling built the whole body coordination you can't fake with bulk. The tetrad structured the intensity and the recovery, so the body sharpened instead of breaking. And the diet fueled all of it without ever bloating it. Not one of these works alone. And the lean, dense, hard physique the whole world still worships, that was never the goal. It was the byproduct of training the right thing. Now, return to Olympia, to Bybon, standing over that block of red sandstone. He doesn't look like what the modern world sells you as strength. No excess, no spectacle, nothing wasted. And he can move a weight that would pin most men, because everything that made him strong is hidden under the surface, in a body trained to summon every fiber it owns at once. The Greeks never chased the body. They chased the function, and the body fell out of it. The ancient way exists to recover what was lost. If this changed how you think about the next time you train, you already know what to do.